August 1944, Falaise pocket. Captured Wehrmacht Hauptmann, his uniform coated in the chalky dust of retreat, accepted a steaming canteen cup from his American guard. He anticipated the American swill of Nazi propaganda, watery, bitter, and burnt. He sipped, and his weary defiance cracked. The flavor was rich, aromatic, unmistakably real coffee. According to a U.S. interrogation report, his shock was palpable. When he learned this robust brew came not from a percolator or captured European stocks, but from a tan packet of Maxwell House instant coffee stirred into hot water, his cognitive universe faltered. This moment embodied a staggering logistical truth. The German soldier, due to the Allied blockade, survived on coffee ersatz, a bitter, coffeeless brew of roasted barley, acorns, and chicory. It was a symbol of enduring hardship, of will over matter. Yet here, in a makeshift American holding area, the lowliest private could produce a genuine, high-quality cup in 60 seconds. This was not merely a comfort. It was a silent, brutal demonstration of total industrial domination. The German military ethos, steeped in the virtue of suffering and moral fiber, derided American comfort as weakness. The instant coffee was the ultimate refutation, a technology that delivered not just a commodity, but morale, efficiency, and a taste of home to the very edge of the battlefield. It rendered the Nazi ideology of austerity absurd. But how did this humble brown powder become a secret weapon that stunned the Wehrmacht? And what did it reveal about the two vastly different war machines clashing in Europe? Official U.S. Quartermaster records show this moment was the result of a years-long, multi-million-dollar research project. To understand its impact, we must first see the war through the documented contempt of the German officer corps. The German officer's shock was rooted in a deep-seated, state-mandated contempt. For years, Nazi propaganda had painted America as a decadent, rootless society of gum-chewing, jazz-listening weaklings, obsessed with material comfort and incapable of enduring the spiritual hardships of real war. Magazines like Signal depicted the U.S. as a cultural wasteland, its industrial might irrelevant to the battlefield where willpower triumphed. This view was baked into the Wehrmacht's very philosophy. Forged in the hardness cult of World War I veterans, the German military machine ran on a potent mix of amphetamines, like Pervitin, and an ideology that prized enduring scarcity as a virtue. Comfort was a corrosive luxury. Coffee, the quintessential civilian pleasure, exemplified this. Hermann Göring had famously framed the choice as guns versus butter, mocking societies that prioritized consumption. By 1944, due to the relentless Allied naval blockade, the choice was made for every German soldier. Genuine coffee beans were a vanished memory. The troops subsisted on coffee ersatz, a miserable, bitter substitute brewed from roasted barley, chicory, and ground acorns. Even this was severely rationed, with frontline troops receiving perhaps a few ounces of the grainy powder per week. Letters home, intercepted by censors, are filled with complaints about the vile, gut-wrenching brew. Yet within the Nazi mindset, this deprivation was reframed as strength. Drinking ersatz was a shared sacrifice, proof of superior moral fiber over the soft, coffee-sated allies. The bitterness on the tongue was proof of purity in the soul. This was the peak of documented German ideological confidence, a belief that their spiritual hardness would outlast the material abundance of an enemy they considered fundamentally unserious. As German officers sipped their acorn brew, confident in their moral superiority, declassified documents from the U.S. War Department reveal a massive, hidden project was reaching its climax. For the American GI, coffee was not a luxury. It was a documented psychological necessity. The U.S. Army's own groundbreaking surveys, compiled in the American Soldier Studies, revealed coffee consistently ranked as the single most valued non-combat item in a war zone, above cigarettes, candy, or even fresh fruit. It was the taste of normalcy, a moment of warmth and focus in the chaos. This created an immense logistical puzzle for the Quartermaster Corps, providing it was a nightmare. Brewing traditional coffee required bulky percolators, vast quantities of fuel and clean water, and precious time, all impossible during a frontline assault or in a muddy foxhole. Soldiers improvised jackass coffee, tossing grounds into a boiling helmet, producing a gritty, bitter sludge that wasted precious supplies. A 1943 Quartermaster field report from Tunisia bluntly stated the problem: the inability to provide hot, palatable coffee in forward areas during rapid advances is a primary and consistent complaint. Detrimental to morale, troop morale was a tangible military asset, and bad coffee weakened it. The quartermaster needed a revolution, a product that was lightweight, non-perishable, instant, and required only hot water. The solution, however, faced deep skepticism. Pre-war instant coffee was a cheap civilian novelty. Known for its weak, tinny flavor, a far cry from the strong, aromatic brew soldiers craved. To issue such a product risked a morale catastrophe of its own. The U.S. Army's challenge was therefore twofold: to master a cutting-edge food science problem and to overcome the ingrained taste prejudices of millions of men. But contracts with America's biggest food companies, now declassified, show the Quartermaster General was betting millions on a technological fix that would redefine field sustenance. The solution was born not in a mess hall, but in a laboratory. This was not the simple adoption of a civilian product. Declassified contracts in the National Archives reveal a secret, multi-million-dollar co-development program between the U.S. Army Quartermaster Corps and food science giants like the Nestle Company and General Foods. The military provided the urgent need and the specs. Industry delivered cutting-edge research. The goal was explicit: create a soluble coffee that, when mixed with hot water in a foxhole, tasted indistinguishable from a fresh brewed pot. Early instant coffees were bitter, weak, and prone to caking. The quartermaster demanded a revolution. Scientists made breakthroughs in spray drying and agglomeration processes, carefully controlling heat and particle size to preserve the volatile aromatic oils that defined real coffee flavor. The result was a fine, free-flowing powder of concentrated coffee essence. It was then packaged with military precision into small, hermetically sealed tins, impervious to moisture, pests, and corrosion, for inclusion in every care ration and as standalone coffee units. The scale was monumental. By 1944, production exceeded 140,000 pounds of soluble coffee per month, destined for millions of small tins. Stating the development of a soluble coffee meeting the exacting standards of the American soldier is a direct contribution to fighting efficiency. This was the arsenal of democracy applied to morale. While German industry struggled to produce ersatz from acorns, American industry, backed by military science, perfected the delivery of a genuine luxury. It was a total logistical victory, eliminating fuel needs, brewing equipment, waste, and time, while guaranteeing a standardized high-quality product to every soldier, from headquarters to the outermost front line. The humble packet represented the zenith of systematic, technocratic problem-solving applied to human comfort. As mountains of this magical powder shipped to England in preparation for D-Day, ultra-intercepts and captured German documents show the enemy remained blissfully, arrogantly unaware. On June 6, 1944, alongside rifles and grenades, American assault troops carried a new secret weapon in their ration packs: the tan tin of soluble coffee. In the grueling weeks that followed, trapped in the bloody labyrinth of Normandy's hedgerows, this small item proved its worth. Exhausted, rain-drenched GIS, unable to risk a cooking fire, could crouch in their muddy holes, heat a canteen cup of water over a tiny hexamine tablet, and in moments have a steaming, surprisingly robust cup of coffee. Memoirs like those of Captain Charles MacDonald describe this ritual as a vital psychological anchor, a 60-second restoration of sanity and warmth that steeled men for the next deadly push through the bocage. It was a logarithmic force multiplier for morale, delivered silently to millions. Meanwhile, German intelligence, intercepting careless radio chatter or observing through field glasses, saw only confirmation of their prejudice. Interrogations of Germans captured in June and July reveal a continued arrogant dismissal. A lieutenant captured near St. Lay scoffed, "Your soldiers are spoiled. We saw them heating their little tins behind the lines. They cannot fight without their comforts." This is not the behavior of serious warriors to the Germans. Shivering in their own holes with only bitter ersatz and pervitine, this American ritual was the epitome of softness. They remained convinced that an army dependent on such trivial comforts would break under the relentless pressure of real combat. They failed to comprehend that this was not dependence, but a systematic eradication of a logistical hardship they themselves had simply accepted as fate. The coffee was a tiny, tangible proof that the American system cared for its individual soldier's will to fight in a way the German system never could. Then, in the summer of 1944, as the Allied breakout began and thousands of Germans were captured, intelligence debriefs document a recurring, bewildered question from prisoners. The decisive battle was fought on the pallet. In a holding cage behind the collapsing front, a captured Hauptmann accepted a canteen cup from his American guard. Expecting the tepid, bitter ersatz of his own army, he was instead met with a rich, aromatic steam. He sipped. The flavor was full-bodied, unmistakably real coffee. His sneer of anticipated contempt froze, then melted into pure, unguarded shock. This moment, repeated thousands of times, was meticulously recorded. U.S. Army G2PW intelligence bulletins from late 1944 consistently report that the quality of American rations, with genuine coffee being a primary point of comment, caused severe psychological dislocation among prisoners. For the German officer, this cup was a devastating data point. His entire worldview, that American abundance was ersatz and shallow, comfort-bred weakness, collapsed in the face of this simple, excellent product. The logical implication was terrifying. If the Americans could deliver high-quality coffee to every private in a muddy hole, what else could they deliver? Artillery shells without limit? Replacement tanks? Fresh divisions? The coffee was a tiny, tangible sample of an infinite logistical pipeline. It proved their material superiority was not just quantitative, but qualitative, extending even to life's smallest comforts. This shock had immediate intelligence value. Interrogators noted the softening effect. A prisoner experiencing this radical dissonance, treated humanely and given better provisions than his own command could muster, was far more likely to move from defiant silence to resigned cooperation. He was, in a very real sense, disarmed by hospitality. The official quartermaster history would later conclude, the development of soluble coffee was one of the most important contributions to troop morale during the war. But its impact was dual. It sustained the American soldier while simultaneously bewildering and demoralizing his enemy. The German ideology of hardness, of triumph through will over scarcity, was rendered absurd. They had endured the bitterness of acorn brew as a virtue, only to find their enemies not softened by luxury, but strengthened by it, their morale scientifically maintained by food technologists an ocean away. In the span of one canteen cup, U.S. intelligence analysts noted a profound shift in the attitude of captured personnel, from defiant to disillusioned. The coffee was merely the tip of the spear. Interrogation reports from the summer and fall of 1944 document a cascading collapse in German prisoner assessments, stunned by the abundance of American rations, which included not just soluble coffee, but real chocolate, canned fruit, and abundant cigarettes. Captured soldiers and officers alike expressed a fatalistic despair. A common refrain noted in a G2PW bulletin was the rhetorical, defeated question, how can a nation that gives its soldiers real coffee, chocolate, and white bread ever run out of shells or tanks? This envy seeped back to the German front lines. Analysis of captured German mail by U.S. intelligence revealed soldiers writing home with bewildered descriptions of American luxury, inadvertently sowing doubt about their own cause's viability. The ultimate irony was now measurable, the very softness. Nazi ideology derided was a tangible source of American combat resilience. The GI, sustained by reliable comforts, maintained his morale and physical stamina through long periods of static misery and high-intensity combat. The German soldier, reliant on diminishing willpower and chemical stimulants, watched his own rations shrink in both quantity and quality. The contrast between ersatz and the real thing became a metaphor for the entire war effort, one side innovating to eliminate hardship, the other mythologizing the endurance of it. The revelation was so complete that after the surrender, several German officers, in debriefs with quartermaster historians, specifically inquired about the production technology behind soluble coffee. They recognized it not as a trivial comfort, but as the emblem of a superior technical and logistical mindset that had utterly overwhelmed them. The beverage they had scorned became, in hindsight, an early and telling symbol of their defeat. The immediate intelligence gain was real, but Quartermaster after-action reports show the impact of this innovation extended far beyond the prisoner cage, altering the very rhythm of the American war machine. The impact was immediate and twofold. On the battlefield, soluble coffee conferred a subtle but documented operational edge. It saved critical minutes during dawn stand 2, or a short halt on the march. No grinding, no pot, no cleanup. A sentry could heat water in his canteen cup over a concealed, smokeless hexamine tablet, gaining warmth and alertness without betraying his position with a fire. It provided a reliable instant pick-me-up for tank crews before an assault or infantryman holding a frozen line. This consistent, decentralized boost to morale and stamina amplified the already formidable American logistical tempo, keeping units more effective for longer. The greater consequence, however, unfolded after the guns fell silent. Millions of GIS returned home not only accustomed to instant coffee, but actively preferring its convenience and associating its taste with survival and camaraderie. The war had effectively conducted the largest product trial in history. As a 1948 General Foods Marketing Report concluded, the veteran mindset acceptance of soluble coffee in the field has overcome the pre-war stigma of ersatz. It is now associated with modernity, convenience, and victory. The market exploded. Annual U.S. sales of instant coffee soared from niche pre-war levels to over £40 million by 1948, creating a multi-billion-dollar industry. Post-war advertising by Maxwell House and Nescafé proudly touted their product's war-winning heritage, cementing the cup of joe as a permanent symbol of American ingenuity. The conflict had perfected the technology and forged the consumer base in one stroke. While post-war Germany struggled with basic food shortages, America was experiencing a consumer revolution. Partly caffeinated by a technology born from military necessity, military historians and business analysts now document that this humble innovation did more than warm up a soldier. It helped caffeinate an advance and then an entire economy. This episode stands as a landmark in the history of modern warfare, one where logistics and psychology converged. As historian Lizzie Collingham argues, in The Taste of War, World War II was a conflict of sustaining systems. The instant coffee tin symbolizes the triumph of the American system, which quantified the individual soldier's welfare, his comfort, morale, and sense of normalcy as a critical component of combat effectiveness to be engineered and delivered. This stood in stark contrast to the German and Japanese systems, which often viewed the soldier as an expendable instrument, his endurance of hardship a virtue in itself. The Allied victory validated the former approach. The lesson was institutionalized. Morale is logistically quantifiable. This principle directly shaped the post-war science of military rations, leading to the continual improvement of the MRE meal, ready to eat, where taste, familiarity, even comfort items like hot beverage powders are core design specs, not afterthoughts. Furthermore, the soluble coffee tin was a forerunner of cocoa colonization. It represented a potent vision of American modernity, a blend of advanced food science, mass production, and a promise of convenient abundance that would flood global markets after 1945. It was a consumer product forged in battle, its reputation for quality and reliability earned under the worst conditions. The official Quartermaster history itself framed it as a strategic asset, concluding, "Soluble coffee proved that an item considered a mere comfort in peacetime could, through scientific ingenuity and logistical, will become a tangible instrument for maintaining the fighting strength of an army." The legacy is a profound doctrinal contrast. The American model demonstrated that systematically eliminating small hardships created a more resilient, focused, and ultimately more effective fighting force. The ideologies that glorified austerity and willpower alone were defeated, in part by a superior understanding of human motivation. Packaged in a 1-ounce tin. So, what is the ultimate documented lesson from this story of beans, brains, and battlefield psychology? The documented lesson is one of applied ingenuity. American victory was engineered not only in tank factories and shipyards, but in food science laboratories. It was a war won in part by applied empathy, by understanding that a soldier is a system requiring fuel, warmth, and psychological sustenance, and then marshaling overwhelming industrial might to deliver those essentials with ruthless efficiency. The German command, for all its tactical mastery, was utterly outmatched in this deeper science of sustenance. They scoffed at the comfort of coffee, failing to recognize it as a precise metric of a logistical and innovative capacity they could not defeat. This episode is a quintessential example of Yankee ingenuity applied to total war, solving a profound human problem. Homesickness, cold, fatigue, with a brilliant technological fix that would subsequently change global consumer culture. The scale is almost incomprehensible, according to the final Quartermaster Corps tally. By war's end, they had procured and shipped over 1.6 million pounds of soluble coffee to fighting fronts worldwide. That is enough for more than 1 billion cups of morale, each one a silent testament to a system that fought for the spirit of its individual soldier. This story is hidden in Quartermaster reports and Food Lab memos. If you want to discover more untold stories of how everyday innovations won World War II, subscribe. We dig into the archives so you can understand the war in a whole new way. Next time, we'll reveal an even more bizarre U.S. secret weapon, the bat bomb. The plan to use incendiary bats to burn down Japanese cities is a story of wild ingenuity, you woe and believe. Military history proves, never underestimate a nation that goes to war, not just with guns, but with a research department determined to make sure every soldier in every foxhole can have a decent cup of coffee.